What's up, everybody? My name's Isaiah Rivera. I have a 50.5-inch vertical. This is John Evans. John, how old are you?
I'm 30. I'm about to turn 31 in August.
That's pretty crazy.
I'm an
And
old man.
and are you jumping the highest ever in your life off 2 feet at the moment?
Off 2 feet for sure, for sure. I would say last year at 29, or yeah, no, I might have been 30. Right as I turned 30, that was probably the highest I've jumped off one. This year I've pivoted to 2 foot. I was gonna do it just for a little bit, and then I just had fun with it, so I've been sticking with it. But yeah, I'm definitely jumping higher than I've ever jumped off two, for sure.
And that's really interesting because for all of eternity in the eons, people always thought of an athlete's kind of athletic prime as like late 20s. But what we're seeing with professional dunkers specifically, which are probably aside from 1 foot jumpers like in the Olympics and stuff like that, it's the first generation of 2 foot jumpers that have trained specifically for jumping off of 2 feet. And we are seeing that a lot of them, the ones that actually train, are jumping their highest in their early 30s and continuing to be able to compete at an elite level even into their late 30s, which kind of breaks the mold of what we have thought about in terms of training. So that's what the topic we're going to be talking about today is training to jump higher as an older athlete. As you guys probably know, we're the owners of THPstrength.com, where we coach athletes to jump higher. And a big percentage of the athletes we coach are actually age 30 and above jumpers, and even some guys into their 40s. So I think we'll talk about a few of them. By the way, if you want to see some of the guys we've coached, if you go on THPstrength.com, right now there's a video I compiled of 3 or 4 of the older athletes we've coached out of dozens. It was only the ones I could find in 30 minutes of searching. So if you want to just look at that, it's pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, let's start talking about them.
All right, yeah. So I would say now at 30, almost 31, I actually don't consider myself old relative to the demographic of people that we're seeing come up in the sport. And what's interesting too is that it's turning more into a community like marathon running than it is like this competitive or Instagram or YouTube or internet kind of sensational thing, right? Like early on, I would say when we were in our teens, it was TFB and Dunkademics and maybe Hoop Mixtape. No, they didn't even really post dunkers
No,
like that.
who
Did
mixtape would post?
Yeah.
Would
Okay.
post
So,
dunkers.
but it was like that. That's what dunking was, and then I would say as it has branched out, largely in part because of Andy, I would say.
Yeah.
And the community has grown. It's turned into just that. Similar to how like you wouldn't see people.
By the way, just because I'm
Yeah,
trying
go
to do a
ahead.
good job of introducing these people, TFB, if you don't know who they are, it's Team Flat Brothers. It's a YouTube channel. They started becoming popular in '09 with the start of like YouTube around there, and they popularized dunking. It was essentially street ball dunkers. Same with Anwan. You had guys like Air up there that popularized it. And then the guy that we're talking about, Andy, his Instagram is Over the Hill Dunker. He's 51 now.
I think so.
And he's still dunking. He dunked for the first time in his 40s, I believe, and
Yeah.
he is the creator of Dunk Camp. And he started posting on YouTube, kind of posting his progress and that type of thing. So just for an overview of who these people are, if you
Right.
don't know them.
But I would say what's happening now is we're seeing the shift of it becoming a recreational sport, more or less, right? A community of people. Because like marathon running is something, pickleball is something, like you kind of have this like rec volleyball is something, and then dunking is like more or less moving into this niche community or sport of people that either were collegiate athletes or wanted to be collegiate athletes or enjoy doing athletic endeavors, and they want to train still. They like lifting. They don't want to go out and just run, 50 miles a week and then go run a couple marathons a year. They want to stay fit, and they have the means to afford coaching. Right, they're in their mid 20s or sometimes mid 30s or sometimes mid 40s, and what we're seeing as a result of that shift is that we're getting more data on the community, and we're seeing that these people that can afford guidance are actually able to continue to improve as they age, and get closer to even 40 years old, along with the fact that guys that more or less followed like TFB and these other accounts or whatever else, as they age up, we're seeing their performance is not decreasing, right, as their training information or training knowledge is increased, and they take their body more seriously. And I think in general, the assumption that you had to be 18 to 25 to be in your athletic prime when it came to jumping is shifting, right? I think whenever I was in high school, it was like the assumption was, if you don't dunk genetically, if just on pure genetics alone, you're probably never going to dunk, right? Now it's like pretty much anyone can dunk if they train hard enough and long enough. You can keep improving. And in my experience, I would say now guys are probably peaking in that early 30s, especially off 2 feet. 1 foot, it seems to be a little bit earlier than that, but you can sustain it into your early 30s. And then some guys are even still dunking well into their late 30s and 40s. Like,
there is that one.
Like, how old's
the
Remix?
Chinese? Remix is like 42 now.
That's what I'm saying. He was still killing it in his late 30s, and then he had a meniscus injury. But
yeah,
a lot of
but
guys
even now he's back.
Yeah, he's
dunking.
still windmilling. Like,
yeah.
And the Chinese guys he's 36 or 37.
And he's a 1 foot jumper.
Chen Zidong, I
he
think.
still jumps. I mean, he's doing more 2 foot jumping now. If you don't know him, it's a Chinese dunker. He's like 5'9". He jumps stupid high. I think his background is triple jump or long jump.
I think it was long jump. He's like a 720 long jumper.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it too is like guys didn't have a way early on to pay for like life, as a dunker. Now it's like it's becoming a recreational sport and people have full-time jobs and still want to train. So they have access to better education, coaches like us, right? And better coaching. They have direction with it, which they know how to work around injuries, and they're not just like blindly kind of trying to figure things out themselves. They have the means to afford the coaching, right, as they age up a little bit. And now it's like the belief that they actually can continue to improve as they get older. Yeah, I think there was a limit. Like, it was like running a 4-minute mile. People didn't think running a 4-minute mile was possible, and now tons of people, collegiately, people do that every year.
Yeah, because even now, seeing some of the elite guys in their late 30s, like, my belief used to be I would probably stop being able to dunk in my 30s somewhere. Now, I really feel like I'll be able to dunk at an elite level into my mid-30s and then still do it, like, as a hobby, as a sport, as something I enjoy, like going to go play pickup basketball. I still feel like I'll be able to go out and have dunk sessions into my 40s. Look at Andy.
Andy's 50.
He's still doing
he's
it.
5'10".
Yeah.
5'10".
Yeah, so
Mormon dude, seemingly very genetically ungifted.
Yeah.
Never dunked when he was in high school, or maybe he said he did it once.
Yeah, so I see someone like Andy, and I'm just like, dang, I might be doing this because I enjoy it. I genuinely do it just for the love of it. At this point, because coaching is my main thing, how I earn a living. I don't even see me having to do contests and competitions as a necessity. Like, I do it mainly for the love of it now, like just for the enjoyment of it.
Right.
So yeah, I see myself doing it well into my 40s.
So let's talk about some anecdotes of guys that we've actually seen personally improve well into their 40s at this point, right? Like David Landstein is the first guy that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Brian McNamara.
David Landstein's Instagram is @oldmandunks. If you want to go take a look at it, he's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Success story because some of the other guys, it was like they got back into shape. His was he dunked for the first time at what, like 42? 40,
yeah,
43?
with no athletic background.
Yeah.
Like David is, I believe, a software engineer, CEO, or something. I don't even know what he does, but I think he does something in software sales or whatever. But he, kind of is this example of someone who had a dream, had the means and the time, actually not even really the time to do it, and decided he wanted to go to dunk camp, ended up dunking there. I had a conversation with him about his Achilles. I think he was doing a couple other programs at the time, and I was like, dude, you need a little bit more direction, and you have a lot of potential. I was like, you're touching 10.5. I saw him, I think he touched 10.4 or 10.5, and I was like, you could dunk right now after his Vertec. And he was like, are you serious? And I was like, you need to go try to dunk right now. And then he dunked on, I think, 9.5 or something like that, and It was a really emotional moment. Andy actually started crying. It gives me chills thinking about it. He was like so excited. And I think that shattered this limiting belief that people can't, dunk in their later ages.
I get asked all the time, like, am I too old for this? He dunked for the first time in his 40s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same with Andy.
Andy
dunked
did
for
too.
the first time in his 40s.
And I think, when you're looking at that, it's like, oh, wow, that's really cool. But what do you do after that? And it's like he got better direction, better coaching.
I think the next year, so he dunked for the first time on 9.5.
He started working with us after that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my uncle, but
Yeah, and then the next year, I think he dunked on the 9/11 and a half rim or
9/11,
something.
and then I think the year after that he dunked on 10. He's dunked on 10 a handful of times, and I think did he make a two-hander?
I think so, yeah.
I think he's made a two-hander now. So he's just like been an example.
Steady improvements.
Yeah, of steady improvement. And I think a lot of people think that, you make the most amount of improvement the first month and then you're done and that's it. It's like, someone on my page said, oh, I can't wait until John's like nasty off two or whatever. And I've always had the outlook of this is going to be like a 1 to 2 year thing. And a lot of people get discouraged and they don't usually stick with something. If you know me, one of my greatest attributes is sticking with something. And I commented back and I was like, this is going to age poorly because like I know what it takes to get better and I know how long it takes. Like I would not be surprised if I end up windmilling off two on 10. I would not off the dribble. I would not be surprised if I end up East Bang on 9-10 off the dribble. Like I think that's in the wheelhouse for me. Who knows what the ceiling is, but it takes time to get better, and that's another limiting belief that people have is like, oh, I'm only gonna be good if I do this for like I'm gonna get to my best after a year or so. And that's just not the case. Like Isaiah improved probably more, in that 3-year span from 15 to 18 than he did in his whole life, but he was hitting puberty. And then after that, it was like, oh, well, he's trained 3 years and improved so much already, and he has a 44-inch vertical or 43-inch vertical, all this knee pain as a result of the training he's done and jumping.
It's crazy, too. So many people see that I improved that much from 15 to 18, and they want to know what I was doing then, which was 3x5 squats.
3x5 squats and jumping every day. But it's like at what cost?
Yeah, but it's more, you want to look at what the elite guys that improve. Like if you can get your vertical from 48 to 50, that's the stuff
the training
that's what's hard to improve.
That's the really, really challenging part. Like it's almost like getting into the NBA is really, really hard. And everyone's like, well, how did you get there or whatever else? And it's like, well, how do you stay there and how did you get better every year? And how did you now
look at
how
the
are
guy,
you the best?
like look at the guy like Derrick Jones Jr., for example.
Right.
He was in the G League, got put into the NBA to basically participate in the contest.
That's actually crazy.
Now he's on a team that might win the NBA championship, playing.
And he's starting.
Yeah, playing like legit minutes. So it's like, all right, don't look at the guy that made the NBA or whatever. Don't look at the workouts there. What was the guy doing who went from elite to more elite?
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell is
and
he
continuing to get better every single year?
Yeah.
I think that's, and we always say this in terms of track, right? Like, oh, it's awesome. You got under 10 seconds or whatever else in the 100-meter dash. Like, getting from 10.2 to 10.1 is harder than going from 11.5 to 10.9, right? Yeah, it's a bigger improvement to go from 11.5 to 10.9, but you've already milked out so much of your genetic potential when you're getting those early gains that it's like to keep improving is so difficult. And I think that's a limiting belief with older athletes is like, oh, well, I've lifted weights in the past, or I was on a college sports team or whatever else, and, I was in it for 3 years or 4 years, and I'm done. You see it all the time in track. Collegiate athletes go through their collegiate career, they finish in 4 years, and they think that's their genetic potential. That's as far as I could go. The athletes that keep training, though, I've seen guys finish college, do 4 years of college. There was a guy that ran a 49.5 in the 400, got down to 44. That's world class. And he ended up going to the trials and was ranked, top 10 in the country. Like, he was a nobody. 49 seconds is a nobody. That's a high school time, and then had 8 years of training under his belt, 4 years in high school, 4 years of college. You think it's the highest level possible if you're a college track and field athlete. Goes post-collegiate, gets a better coach. 3-4 years later, he just kept improving 1 second or half a second each year. You take that and you compound that out across 5-6 years, now he's world class. Like, you just don't know what you're capable of until you actually, put the time in and grit your teeth a little bit and get after it. Your genetic potential doesn't really matter at that point. You're going to be way further along than you ever thought you were probably going to be, and you'll probably exceed your expectation of what you thought your genetic potential was. And I think that limiting belief in terms of age is also super relatable because people think, well, if it doesn't happen in the first year, it's not going to happen, right? Like Brian McNamara trained with us for probably 2 to 3 years, right? And, he had a lot of
Instagram is at over 40 athletes, I believe.
Yeah. And he had a lot of injuries pop up, a lot of calf injuries or Achilles injuries. We were always kind of working around. He has 2 kids, and, one of them required a lot of assistance and things and took a lot of his time and resources. And he was still able to train probably 10 hours a week and eventually got his first dunk on 9-10 with Isaiah holding the ball. Like, we did it the most the most feasible way possible, but like that was way further along than he ever thought possible. And then after he did that, he was like, wow, like who knows how good I could be, and then decided to go into pursue javelin. But like he stuck with it for years. You know, he was probably one of the first athletes that were older that I started working with. I don't think he'd ever dunked in his life, and he could dunk on like 9.6 with two hands, maybe sometimes. I don't even know, maybe one hand 9.6, and then just slowly improved until he was able to dunk on 9.10. And it was just a matter of staying the course. And I think, like, you know, if you're a younger athlete and you're listening to this and you're like, well, how does this apply to me? How it applies to you is, like, you don't know when you're going to be your best. It could be in your mid-30s. It could be when you're 40, right? Like, you look at Remix and Myrie Bowden.
Continued improvement.
He was, like, nasty when he was 40. He was getting his head above the rim when he was 40.
And he was a rare case of an old school dunker. He came from that street ball era, but he trained consistently. He did not stop training. He loved bodybuilding. He would do a lot of hang cleans. He liked to squat and deadlift, and he just stayed consistent. He just didn't stop.
Yeah,
like,
and he listened to his body. I think as
very
well.
So because I think the reason he learned to listen to his body is because he was on the Globetrotters, and I think he broke both his shins.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Like, I think he had, like, crazy shin splints or something, or, like, stress fracture. And, yeah, he ended up breaking both his legs, and then that's when he started actually lifting.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all, actually. That's really interesting. But in general, I would say this podcast is more about your genetic potential and when you can reach it, as well as, like, if you are an athlete who is older and listening to this and you're in your early 30s and you have some injuries or whatever, and you're kind of thinking, like, is this worth it for me to get into? I think it's one of those things you have to view it as a community that you're stepping into, and it's a hobby that you can do for years and years and years. And who knows, like, maybe you do it into your early 40s or into your mid 40s or whatever else, right? Like, it might be a season of your life, but I think it's definitely worth doing. It's super enjoyable. It's way better than going out and running 50 fucking miles a week.
Bro, I had to find this testimonial because this guy Michael Robinson, which I think the most potential, if you're an older athlete, is if you used to jump too.
Oh yeah.
Like if you used to jump and then got out of it. This is an example of this guy. He dunked for the first time at 52 after having done it for years.
That's like Philip. Like Philip stopped for a really long time.
Oh, let's talk about Philip actually.
Yeah, Philip is another great example. So Philip, I think, started working with us in 2019, maybe earlier than that.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It was before COVID.
I think it was 2019.
And he was like super diligent, listened to every podcast, took in every little bit of information. I think he maybe had dunked when he was like in high school or college.
I think it was like high school, like maybe like 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah, and then, had just life get in the way and kind of backed away from training and stuff, and then fell back in love with it. Took in all the information that we put out there and then just started applying it.
And he's what, 40?
I think now he's 41.
41?
41, yeah. I think. Maybe 40, 41. And then started applying it and, like, really dialed in everything from his technique to his training. Had some knee injuries that I had to help him work through in 2021, actually. Maybe it was 2021 or 2022, early 2022. And then ended up dunking on, I think, 9/11. And then the other day, he made another one on 10. And some kid walked in front of the camera. So he's like someone that has, been through it in terms of life. He's gone through some shit, stayed the course, and now he's one of the most knowledgeable athletes, probably if not the most knowledgeable athlete I've ever coached. And we have him help us answer questions because I trust him. And he's super diligent about paying attention to what we say and applying it. And then he's also doing the work on the outside to learn on his own and learn from my mentors like Mike Young and Dan Paff and all these other guys. And now he's continuing to improve in his early 40s, right, through all the injuries and everything else. And now he's healthier than he's ever been. He's more powerful than he's ever been. And he's, more knowledgeable too, I would say too. So he's like another example of someone that just stayed the course. And coming back to the track thing, I think it's so freaking common for guys to just quit too early. Like, you see it all the time there in a quantitatively assessed sport. Dunking is kind of like that too. But it's way more fun. Like, track kind of sucks. It's not fun, especially if you're like a distance runner or like a mid-distance runner. Jumping is like more fun. But like dunking is
very fun.
Way more fun. like you said this to me, I was like, what height should I dunk? And you're like, the one you're gonna have the most fun on. And I was like, that's a good point. I think I'm gonna do that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to add. Do you have anything else you want to add to this?
One thing. Philip, he helps us with coaching, and he's actually looking for 5 athletes that are older athletes. So if you're late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s even, and you want to jump higher and you want to get personalized help, you will literally have his personal number. You will get onboarded by him. He will write your training, in addition to having access to us and everything that THP offers. So if you fall in that category and you want personalized help, I'll have an application in the description. You can click that.
Yeah. And the thing is with this is like this, because we manage so many athletes, I think, and we like to do that and we enjoy it, and I wanted to make it more accessible. We then had this gap of, oh shit, there's people who still want to pay more money and get more service that we just don't have enough time to give you the service that you need. So Philip, we've been mentoring for 5 years, and we were like, oh, well, this person needs more help. We've got this guy that we trust to do it, who has the time and has the resources to help you. So if you are looking for that and you want to, invest more money into, your athletic career, and you would like to do it, with us, and then also have us guide you along the way. But Philip is really the key guy. He's going to be your main point of contact if you have questions or programming changes and stuff, and he's going to be able to do it in more detail just because he doesn't manage as many athletes as us. So that's why we did it. If you are serious about that and you think that might be a good fit for you, fill out the application.
And we're serious when we say it's only 5 people.
Yeah, we say that.
He's only has
really
time
not,
for 5 people.
We're not overloading this coach with too many people because we want it to be the highest level of service, because that was the issue we had. We were like, even when we did full services, like we can't balance this appropriately. So we're paying him handsomely to do it. And if you guys, like I said, you're interested in that, definitely fill out the application. And if you're like, oh, I love you guys and I like the service and it's good enough for me, then go to THPstrength.com and you can sign up there. But yeah, that's all I have. Anything else?
Let's go to do this dunk session.
I'm gonna go dunk my balls off.
30 years old.
30 years old. I'm a windmill. See you guys.
Peace out.